put some sugar in a pan like that. Then you're going to put about 25% water. So really, what that means is you're going to put enough water in so it looks like wet sand. Doesn't take much.
Back to the room.
No.
And you'll notice as I jiggle this out, all the sugar becomes wet. And the idea is not sopping wet, not like swimming in water. We just want to get enough water so that it gets all soaked. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bring that up to temperature. I like the wet method, and the reason why is because it is slower. It takes a little more time and you can control the color better. Remember how fast this became dark? This will take much more time to do that. So I can crank the fire up to like 15 and bring it up to a solid boil. Before it starts turning color, you first have to evaporate off all the water. So the water's first got to go. And then it'll start to very slowly change color. But when we're doing the wet method, it takes longer, so we have much more opportunity for the sugar to have problems. So I'm going to take a brush with some water, and I'm just going to wash down the sides of the pan. What that does is it takes any sugar crystals that form on the side of the pan and wash them down into the mixture. What that does is it keeps any contamination out. Remember how I said one crystal of sugar can cause the whole bunch to turn into a pile of hot granulated sugar? That's what will happen. A chain reaction will start to take place. And I've done this. I actually stirred it and let sugar drop into it, and sure enough, I ended up with a pot of granulated sugar again. Bone dry, piping hot, So it really was disappointing back then, because I didn't know much about sugar at the time. And I wanted to make sure that I had sugar that I could use as glue to glue some stuff together at Christmas time, and it didn't work out. But I learned. As these bubbles start forming in here, it starts to boil. Just like with spaghetti sauce, every little bubble causes a little splatter to happen, and you don't see them with sugar. Those little splatters of sugar end up on the side of your pot, and if any one of those crystals forms and drops back in, then you've got a problem. So, even after it starts boiling, occasionally I'll come around and just wash the sides of the pan a little bit with a brush, with a little bit of water to make sure that nothing is forming.
So at this point, if you were to stop it before it started changing color, would it be clear? Like, could you do the same thing and make it clear?
With the wet method, you can actually get clear, because it's still hard with regular sugar, but yes, you can, because it'll happen slowly. So you're going to get clear, you can get light yellow.
Can you put food coloring in it?
You could. Yeah. If you put food coloring in it, I would recommend putting it in while there's still water in here. So like, let's say, a little bit of that paste color or a droplet of liquid could go in there and you could color your sugar. But you'll have to be careful. The thing about cooking sugar is right now we're not adding anything to it. We're just doing sugar and water, or just sugar. It's very brittle at this temperature, but if you want to have sugar you can actually pull, sugar you can actually do things with like they do on television, you have to add acid to the sugar. And that will keep it from crystallizing so quickly. So that's a whole different process. We'll get into that probably next semester, get into it in more detail. But it's a little more complicated. You have to know exactly the ratio of acid to put in it, and then it will retain some of its flexibility for a lot longer.
I think that like the blown sugar is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
So
really
pretty.
Neat. It's hard to get the right consistency. That means you have to have the acid has to be just perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get it right, usually what I do is I'll have, let's say, a pound of sugar, 4 ounces of water. I'll get that going, and then what I'll have is a solution of tartaric acid, where I've taken 1 gram of tartaric acid to like 30 milliliters of water, and then I take 9 drops of that working solution into the sugar mixture. And that's pretty precise.
Yeah.
So because of that, I want to make sure that I make that working solution first, get my measurements right, and then I'll get what I want. But I have to be careful that I get it right. If I put too much acid in, the sugar will never harden. It will remain always flexible, and then it will also just turn to goo once it gets in contact with the air, the water in the air. But if I got too little, it'll become like this and very brittle. So it's just a matter of finding that happy balance between the two.
If you were to do this at home, and if you didn't have a non-stick piece like that, what would you put it on?
What I would probably do is I would put it on something, either metal or glass, and I would lightly spray the pan. to make sure it won't stick to
What
it.
about parchment or something like that? Will this burn right through that?
No, parchment will work fine. It won't burn. It won't burn it. Although what'll happen is it will stick to the parchment. So because it's porous. So a little bit of pan there will help as well.
Do we have any pan spray up here?
I don't have any up here. We may have some downstairs.
In storage, or do you think it'd be in the kitchen?
Today, probably in storage. But these Silpat mats, it will not stick to those. And I've got enough of those for everybody.
Oh.
I was thinking about the nest, though.
Yeah, the nest, if we don't have pan spray, a little light, very light coat of shortening on the outside of this will do the trick too. Because that's essentially what pan spray is.
Oh,
So
poison.
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 Pan spray is poison too.
I like poison.
Another little trick
I
with
like
cooking
poison
sugar is that
too.
when you're cooking sugar for pulling sugar, you need to have the right temperature. This is going to get much higher than that. When we go for caramel, we're going to over 300 degrees. When you're cooking sugar, you go for less than that. So generally, you're going for about 295 degrees Fahrenheit, and you stop it right there. And you put it on marble to get it cooled down or some other cool surface. When you're going for caramel, you're going above 300, and you know it's going to be burning at that point. But a little acid wouldn't hurt either. That would make it a little less brittle. So I don't know if you guys can see in a thing, but it's just starting to turn light pale yellow right now. Just barely. So the water's gone. Notice there's no steam coming out anymore. That tells you the water is completely evaporated, and we're down to nothing but sugar at this point. If I stop it there, what you will see is, I don't know if you guys can see that color. When it's just the lightest honey color, I mean just pale. And yeah, if you can detect that, it's just light pale. It'll continue cooking and getting darker, but you can decide how much flavor you want. Remember, the darker it is, the more bitter it is. And the little bitterness is good. It actually tastes really good. But if you want it to be very mild, you stop it when it's still honey. You know, when it's light yellow with honey. And the bitterness will be very minimal. That's what gives caramel a characteristic flavor. It's that bitterness. So at this point, it's getting darker. And this is it. You can decide where you want to stop. So this will work just as well as the other. You can also take caramel, put it on the Silpat, and you can spread it out while it's still liquid into thin sheets. And that will harden and then be something you can break into pieces. One of the things I like doing breaking into pieces is being able to get those random shapes, but it's still caramel. So I just try to go for even thickness when I do this, and then break it into shapes that I can use for garnish. But that's just one method. Of course, you can also put this in molds of any kind, any shape that you want. Let's say you want to have something round. Put a little bit here in the ramekin.
That's all we're making today?
Yes. Between the caramel and burning up your brulees and stuff, it'll take a little while. Now on Friday, we're going to be making crème glaze, and we're going to be making Bavarian cream. Bavarian cream is made with crème glaze and a little gelatin, so we'll have to do the whole demo of gelatin. I'll let that cool.
So could we use the little candy molds that are downstairs?
Sure. Any shape, anything non-porous, once it's cool, it'll pop right out of there. And you guys can see what's at the bottom. This is what we would do if we were making flan. We would just go ahead and put some caramel at the bottom, and then pour honey custard on top of that. And that would turn to liquid and become that characteristic sauce that pours out over the custard. So right now, this is just starting to harden. So you can see the size, and of course, it's still a little bit soft, still a little bit flexible. But as I break it into random shapes, yeah, why not set up a little garnish? See if I can get it to go through there.
You might want to do that right after